If you are hearing this, you are not alone. Bobby radio in the dark, whisper cutting through the spark. Something calls standing low for underneath the public show. Static cracking through the night. Truth distorted out of sight. Someone trying to break the code before the final overload. Transmission hidden in the noise, buried deep in
Welcome back to another episode of The Backstory. I am Ben Troupe. This is BJ Bennett. Every story that's the backstory. First and foremost, we appreciate all the love. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, keep listening. Last week, BJ, we set it up. Top 10 SEC quarterbacks of all time. So it's only right. And we started with SEC quarterbacks. We got to show love to the ACC quarterback because I already know OBN, former SEC, he going to go through all the position rankings, and we will. But we got to show love, got to pay homage because as great as some of those players were in the SEC, BJ, I don't want to go play for player, but top 10 ACC quarterbacks of all time. And just like last week, it's a mix of best, greatest, hybrids. You talk about innovators, guys before their time. BJ, I'm going to let you kick it off with number 10.
And this was tough, man. Just like the SEC list. I mean, you're talking about some of the greatest players in college football history. There are guys that are absolute superstars who didn't make this list, and it just speaks to the talent. Now, this is a list that you and I put together collectively. So you and I may have some individual disagreements. But this was a lot of work that went into this list. And yeah, we'll start it out at number 10, top quarterbacks in ACC history. We're going to go with Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, Boston College. And you think about Matty Ice. Now, remember, this is college only, but you think about what he did up at Chestnut Hill at BC. I mean, the stats, over 10,000 yards passing, 75 passing touchdowns. But you think about elevating the status quo of your program, Ben. When Matt Ryan was at Boston College, they peaked at number 2 in the country. Let me repeat that. Boston College was number 2 in the country when Matt Ryan was there. And Matty Ice, of course, involved in the Heisman conversation, had that iconic game in Blacksburg in the downpour where he scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes and change to lead Boston College back to beat Virginia Tech. Of course, early on in Boston College's tenure in the ACC, took BC Ben to the ACC Championship game, so was right up there, competing for a championship in one of the best conferences in the country, has the accolades, has the accomplishments. But when I think about Matt Ryan, I think about the moments, most specifically that comeback, the Matty Ice game at Virginia Tech, and I also think about just elevating the program, right? Boston College, a good program, a lot of history, but you're right there competing for national championships. I mean, you're in the top 5, you're in the top 3. Matt Ryan, known for his precision, known for his accuracy, known for his toughness, those clutch moments, Ben, that you saw him come through time and time again in the NFL. Well, that started in college at BC. So Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, starts us off at number 10.
Rightfully so, too, BJ. Let's call it what it really is. I mean, when the last time you watched a Boston College game? You don't. Were you watching Boston College when Matty Ice was there? Yes. There are 3. If you had to name more than 3 Boston College players outside this, I mean, yeah, I'll give you A.J. Dillon, so that's 4. And then you can talk about Doug Flutie, then you can talk about Luke Kuechly. Matty Ice is Boston College, BJ, for everything you said and more. When you go into the ACC, you got the usual suspects. You got Florida State, you got Miami, you got North Carolina, you got Virginia Tech, you got Virginia. Who is this Matty Ice dude? Who is this Matt Ryan dude? Lighting defenses up, got the people stick. Because you know what it is, BJ, when an unusual suspect is making noise, you always start with the quarterback. It's never the running back. It's never a coordinator. And Matty Ice was literally born, because I know he came to my Falcons and obviously had a potential Hall of Fame career. Matty Ice got born, at BC. So yeah, for everything you said and more, with a guy like Matty Ice to be number 10 on this list, as we continue to move forward, you're gonna see why. People gonna say, some people may think he's too low, BJ. Some people may think, how did Matty Ice make the list? Go back and watch the tape when Matty Ice was at Boston College, and you will see why they have not been to replace him since he's left and before he's got there. Which brings us to number 9. Everybody wants to talk about Clemson and these quarterbacks. Well, in order to have these guys, these hybrid guys that came later, you got to have the originator, aka the Godfather, and that would be a one Taj Boyd. Taj Boyd, BJ, when he left, I think he had the most passing touchdowns when he left out of the ACC. You talk about it. You talk about a guy over almost 12,000 yards, 107 touchdowns. This is what made Taj Boyd incredible. If you needed a play, he's gonna make it. Every game was a big game. He's making a play. You know how it is, BJ. Sometimes you might turn it on. He might make a play. No, Taj Boyd was showing up every freaking week, and it was incredible to watch him because before him, nothing against you, Charlie Whitehurst. It wasn't Clemsoning. I think he killed it. I really, because you had the term Clemsoning. Taj Boyd comes in, and you see the type of player he was. And I will say this. He did not win a national championship. That is a team distinction, which as we move on the list, you'll see why we say that. But BJ, when you talk about the quarterback position and how well you play, I don't think you can play it better than him. Now, you got players that are going to be ranked above him, but when you talk about what I want a quarterback to sit in the pocket, check. Improvise with his legs when I need to, check. Never get where the light's too bright for him, never. And he's doing it for a team that has never seen a superstar yet. He was the first superstar quarterback at Clemson, and that's taking nothing away. Now, he wasn't the only. I said he was the first, which means in order to have a second and a third, as my father would say, man, it's easy to be second because the road has already been paved. Well, who paved that road? That would be a one Taj Boyd. And I love the fact that where he's landing on this list because, like I said, BJ, to make a top 10 list in the ACC with some of these guys you're going to hear, you start asking yourself, what separates a player? Man, how he played, when he played, and that he played. I mean, there it is. I mean, 2012 ACC Player of the Year. Taj Boyd was as good as advertised, and I know he had some good players around him, but he was the one. Like, with all the guys around him, he was the one. Taj Boyd, number 9 on the top 10, the top 10 list for the best ACC quarterbacks of all time. BJ, I know you had a chance to cover a guy like Taj Boyd. What stood out to you about him?
Well, I mean, everybody else was playing football. He was playing video games. And you know, you talk about him being a godfather. He really was a pioneer, not just at Clemson, but in terms of quarterbacks who put up these mind-boggling numbers, right? You know, we talked about this, Ben, when we were talking about some of the SEC quarterbacks and how, you know, not that long ago in college football, if you threw 20, 25 touchdown passes in a single season, you were that dude. I mean, you were a superstar. And guys like Taj Boyd come along. I mean, Taj Boyd over 130 touchdowns. I mean, Taj Boyd over 13,000 yards. And he was comfortable entering a Saturday saying, I am the offensive game plan. Everything's going to run through me. I'm going to distribute the ball. Now, playmakers all over the field, certainly, but he was able to push the ball downfield. Beautiful touch on his deep passes. You're talking about a guy that could read the field perfectly. I mean, just a distributor. And I love, you know, you hear people say a live arm, right? A guy that can make all the throws. That's Taj. He's going to drop back. You want 3 steps. You want 5. You know, you want a timing route. You want anticipation. That's Taj Boyd. And just a beautiful throwing motion. Could obviously run that thing as well. But you made a great point where, of course, you think about some of the guys that came after Taj. You think about the Clemson dynasty that sort of emerged, right? This was the guy that started it. This was a guy that laid the foundation. And sometimes in history, you forget about the guys that kind of go first and blaze the trail. And you can't forget about Taj Boyd. You can't forget about what he meant to Clemson, what he meant to college football, what the doors he opened at Clemson, the expectations, Ben, he elevated at Clemson. So I'm a huge fan of Taj Boyd. The numbers are still there in the history books, and he absolutely deserves to be on this list. Moving forward, and again, great players on the – wow. I mean, coming in at number 8, a guy that set all kind of records, threw that thing all over the field. We're going to go with Phillip Rivers at NC State. Now, you talk about numbers. I mean, multiple program and conference records. He had almost 13,500 passing yards. He had 95 passing touchdowns. I mean, you're talking about a guy that elevated the status quo of his program as well. You go back to his final season in Raleigh, they set a school record for wins, Ben. They go to the Gator Bowl, and they put it on Notre Dame, right? So not only was Phillip Rivers putting up big-time numbers, but he was kind of changing the status quo, sort of elevating the profile of a very good program there at NC State. And Phillip Rivers, what you saw him do in the NFL, right? Drop back. He's got the throwing motion that's a little quirky. People like to criticize it. I don't see any receivers criticizing it because he's putting that thing on the money every time he throws it. Was a 4-year starter, of course, at NC State. Was the Iron Man. You see the consecutive starts record. But Phillip Rivers, what you saw in the NFL, if you didn't see him in college, that's what he did. I mean, his game transitioned because he's a guy that drops back, scans the field, and puts it on the money. Fearless. I mean, Phillip Rivers is comfortable throwing into any window. Phillip Rivers also more athletic, more mobile than you think to kind of escape the pocket and at least keep you honest with that ability to move around in the pocket. But I love watching him play, even going back to his days at State. You're talking about a fiery competitor. You're talking about a guy that got up for the big games, got up for the bright lights. I mean, 300 yards, nothing to Phillip Rivers. 350, nothing to Phillip Rivers. And the consistency, right, Ben? You're talking about not only did he do it for a year, not only did he do it for 2 years. I mean, Phillip Rivers did it the whole time he was there. That man's been throwing touchdown passes for a long, long time. He's one of the all-time greats. And you and I have talked about this. How do you separate 5, 6, 7? I mean, Phillip Rivers is in the conversation when you talk about top quarterbacks in ACC history and college football history. He has the numbers to prove it. Look at him catching a touchdown pass there. But big fan of Phillip Rivers. I know you played in the same era as Phillip Rivers, but one of the best to ever do it.
The number that stands out, BJ, is not all the touchdown pass. It's 51. We talking about 51 consecutive starts, 51 consecutive games. He's the Iron Man of college football. Guy. And look, if you notice, you notice that he ain't tucking in and running a lot on these highlights, right? Because he's a pocket pass. He's going to sit back there. He's going to pick you apart. But just like Matty Ice, Phillip Rivers is why you watch NC State football. When he was in college, you wanted to watch this guy. So who this guy with this funky throwing motion? Look at the results. Look at, as you mentioned, BJ, the tight ends, the receivers, the running backs. They love playing with this dude. Even going to his days in the NFL, and country boy, that just loves playing the game of football. And as you mentioned, BJ, came out the womb throwing touchdown passes. And I think for me, when I watch a guy like Phillip Rivers, I watch a guy that said, look, I want to play against these guys. He got recruited by Clemson. We got recruited by Florida State. He got recruited, by Notre Dame. He said, no, I want to play against those guys. Because, BJ, when you go to a school that already has its own tradition, already has, its great quarterbacks, they're going to add you to it. When you first, and they saying, dude, who was this Phillip Rivers guy? Yeah, Phillip Rivers is about, once again, just like I was saying about Taj Boyd, don't get caught up in not winning the Heisman and not winning the national championship. A lot of these guys on this list probably came through that either was around that Phillip Rivers era, and I guarantee you every kid on this list either knew Phillip Rivers or were influenced by him from his production. If you want production, if you want stability, if you want consistency, and if you want that D word, durability, that is Phillip Rivers, times 10. I mean, I can't say enough about him. I'm happy about Phillip Rivers making the list, which brings us to, oh, man, this next guy, I'm going to do my best to introduce him. Number 7 on the list, the great, the incomparable Joe Hamilton. Here's the thing about Joe Hamilton that listeners need to know. Joe Hamilton was the first in a lot of ways. Number one, that dual threat quarterback at Georgia Tech, Heisman Trophy finalist. You're talking about the awards, the Davey O'Brien Award. I mean, you talk about a 99 Heisman Trophy runner-up. But these small, athletic, dual threat, durable quarterbacks, the Baker Mayfields, the Kyler Murrays, the Johnny Manziels. This is the guy you think of because Joe Hamilton, and back when everybody wanted to be in the shotgun, man, he'd get under center. Joe Cool was smooth, man. Quick story, 99, I'm getting recruited by Georgia Tech. I got to go up there and go to a game, got to go into the locker room after the game. That go Joe, and I'm starstruck. I graduated high school in 2000. I'm starstruck by Joe Ham. And he came up to me, man. He said, so you're going to be a Yellow Jacket? I lied to him. I told him, yeah. I mean, I ain't going to tell him no. But I did tell him, yeah, BJ. But what I loved the most about Joe Hamilton was he never, ever, growing up, BJ, people probably told him you're too small. You're going to have to move to another position. No. I'm going to do it at Georgia Tech. I'm going to do it at a high level. There's only one person better than me, and that's a Heisman Trophy winner. But when you talk about production, when you talk about a guy that took a game over, Joe Hamilton, don't blink. Do not blink. He was instant offense. Did it with his legs, did it with his feet, did it with his mind, IQ. Hey, got a chance to meet Joe Hamilton, BJ, back when Coach Collins before became the head coach at Georgia Tech, and he said that that is football greatness. That is football royalty. Joe Ham didn't win the Heisman, not because he wasn't good enough, but when you talk about a guy that elevated Georgia Tech and why people want to go to – if you go to Georgia Tech now in 2026 and you want to play quarterback, Joe Hamilton is the reason why. Super duper happy that he made this list. But, yeah, people call him Joe Smooth. I call him a bricklayer because that is the foundation. Small quarterbacks, that is your foundation. Listen, if aliens come down and they come to Kyler Murray and say, take me to your leader, they're going to take him to Joe Ham. He's going to take him straight to Joe Ham house because that's who birthed him. That's who birthed him.
That's well said, man. And listen, you and I are both Georgia boys. You know, we followed Joe Ham when we were fans. Joe Ham is one of the guys that really made me become captivated by college football, right? What Joe Hamilton did on the field was Joe Hamilton. I saw magic in motion. I mean, he was one of those players where you're watching it and you have to kind of look twice and go, wait, what? Because the ability to be in command, in charge, when you're maybe 5'10", maybe 5'9", that electric playmaking ability that is so rare. And here's the thing about Joe Ham, right? People think about him as kind of playing that backyard ball where he drops back and he improvises and maybe he makes some guys misses, maybe he not miss, maybe he extends a play and throws downfield, and he did all that. But he also led the nation in passer rating. So Joe Ham did it all. He had that ability to kind of figure it out on the fly, but he also was a polished drop back passer when he needed to be. He did everything, right? And the flair, the confidence, the ability to make plays when it mattered most. Now think about some of those games with Florida State, some of those games with Georgia, some of those games with Clemson, right? Where the scores were in the 30s and the 40s, and Joe Ham's going back and forth and making plays. He's one of the originators, and you're exactly right. You know, you think about Johnny Manziel, you think about Kyler Murray, you think about, I mean, even a few years after him, Seneca Wallace. I mean, Joe Hamilton was one of the guys that said, we can do this, right? It doesn't matter if you're 5'8", doesn't matter if you're 6'4". Can you make plays? Can you play college football? Can you play football? And the answer is a resounding yes. You can play it to a Hall of Fame level. You can play it to a championship level. And Joe Hamilton, you watch him, you fall in love with college football. And I'm with you, man. We were on the field talking to him and Calvin Johnson. I mean, two of the all-time greats. You know, what an honor, what a pleasure. But huge fan of Joe Ham. One of the most fun players. I think that's a good way to put it. And just an absolute general, captain, leader on the field. Moving down the list, we go to number 6. And this is a guy that, again, one of the all-time greats. I mean, came in and won a natty right away. How about Trevor Lawrence? And shout out to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, the Jags got that AFC South title last year. Trevor Lawrence doing his thing in the pros with Jacksonville, but national champion, of course, in 18, winningest quarterback in Clemson history. And to me, Ben, that's where it starts. 34-2 career record. 34-2. And you're talking about with Trevor, of course, you know, he's kind of the athletic prototype. He's big, he's tall, he's physical. He's athletic, over 10,000 passing yards, almost 1,000 rushing yards. So you got to give Trevor credit for what he did on the field and kind of that dual threat ability. But when I think about Trevor, I think about a guy that's sort of similar to Tebow in a way, and that the expectations were so overwhelming, right? Coming out of high school, Trevor Lawrence, you know, the 5-star recruit, and he comes in and he says, all right, as a freshman, what are you going to do? How about win a national championship? How about be absolutely unfazed on the biggest stage? And the pinpoint polish, you know, kind of that standing tall, Ben, that presence in the pocket. And you knew, if you're watching Trevor, if you're, you know, a fan of another team that he's playing and you see him in the pocket and you go 1, 2, 2.5, that's going to be a 25-yard gain. I mean, you already know if he has time to set his feet, that's going to be a 25-yard gain, and he's going to pick you apart all game. So I think just the calm demeanor of Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, when you talk about college football, you're talking about 80, 90,000 fans going crazy. You're talking about Saturday night where the entire country's waiting for you all day. Trevor Lawrence just breezes in there, you know, he's relaxed, he's cool, he's got the great hair, he's got the great smile, and he's going to light you up. He's going to throw for 350, he's going to rush for 75, and he's one of the absolute greats to do it. Has the hardware to prove it. I mean, Ben, there aren't many guys who in the history of this sport have come in right away and said, give me a ring. I mean, not many guys have had that moxie, have had that confidence. So when I think about Trevor, I just think about controlling a game with his kind of demeanor, right? Controlling an outcome with just his calming presence, his execution on the field. Trevor's an absolute superstar, man, and helped, much like Taj kind of set the table, Trevor helped elevate and establish and affirm Clemson as a national powerhouse.
When Trevor Lawrence was coming out of high school, you know how many, when he finally signed to Clemson, do you know how many recruiting coordinators was like, dude, we almost have him. This dude, I mean, when he got to Clemson, BJ, as you mentioned, 6'6", standing in the pocket, 1,000 career rushing yards, lost 2 games in college. You know how many people can't stand Trevor Lawrence during his time at Clemson? Because he didn't lose much. He did not lose often. He barely lost. And I think everything you said, but here's the thing. Listen, if you get a quarterback coming out of the state of Georgia and he goes to a big-time college, this dude can play. And we're going to get to some more on this list as we continue to go. But the thing about it is, BJ, the whole world was watching Clemson. When Trevor Lawrence was at Clemson, the entire college football world was watching Clemson. If you weren't, it's because you were either in the ACC and didn't like him or was in the ACC and couldn't beat him. Either way, you was watching this dude. Trevor Lawrence was almost automatic. In that pocket, I mean, the weapons that he had, the scheme that he had, the team that he had. Sorry, LSU. The real Death Valley was in Clemson when Trevor Lawrence was there. They any chance they got to wear all orange. When you talk about being able to play in the national championship, and who did he beat the brakes off of? That would be Tua-led. Alabama. And yeah, I know people sometimes get caught up in his cast around him, which he had some guys around him. BJ, I think he was the best of all of them. And that's taking nothing away from Etienne and Cleveland Farrell, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Christian Wilkins and those guys, Isaiah Simmons. It was a lot of them. I think he was the best of all of them. And like I said, people say, well, he's only number 6. Yes, we're going to just keep listening when you start talking about the guys, 5 and up. But I think the thing about a guy like Trevor Lawrence is, when you think about Dabo Swinney, you owe that man some of your check. Because Trevor Lawrence, that's when Dabo Swinney elevated as a head coach, even though we got another Clemson Tiger on the list. That's when Dabo Swinney was talking about being the best coach in college football, without a doubt, because you had Trevor Lawrence. And you seal the deal being the number 1 overall pick. So, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, number 6 on the list. Could be higher, right? Definitely wouldn't be lower. I know we kind of went back and forth, BJ, with who we go, which going to bring us to our top 5. This next guy is a guy I have some experience with. Played against him in 2000. I was 18 years old. He was 28 years old. That would be Heisman Trophy winner, 3-time national champion, Chris Winkie. BJ, this is what sums it up to me about Chris Winkie. He owned that pocket. The way he manipulated defensive line, the way he manipulated defense coordinators, the way he was smooth in the pocket, never got. He was a coach on the field. I mean, I'm sitting there watching him as an 18-year-old freshman, and I'm thinking to myself, is he just gonna hold the ball? He had the craziest drop back you ever seen, but he was so confident. I mean, a guy coming from baseball, then come play football, but to have the career he had. But I saw him at his best. I saw him when he's a Heisman, I got belted with some of the biggest oranges in the state of Florida. But Chris Winkie was nice, man. I mean, he's one of those guys, BJ, I don't want to admit how nice he was because he was at Florida State. It's undeniable. Ain't no hate in me. And guys, for those who don't know, me, BJ, and Cody, we just recently went and took a blood test. The doctor came back and told us it's negative. We ain't got no hate in our blood. They checked us. We got checked. Ain't no hate in me. Ain't no jealousy in me. Ain't no animosity.
Wait. You just opened up the intro to a guy in the top 5 by saying, I was 18, he was 28. I mean,
I'm just giving you his age. But here's the thing, BJ. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Chris Winkie, right? No, let me give you a quick fact real quick. It's only 4 ACC quarterbacks ever to win the Heisman. All 4 of them on this list, and 3 of them came from Florida State, Chris Winkie being one of them, right? He is the first No, he's the second of three of them. But I'm not trying to give away the list. But I think the thing that sets Chris Winkie apart was legacy. He wanted his own. He's coming through a place like Florida State that already has some legacy players at the quarterback position. He's saying, how they gonna remember me? They ain't gonna remember me for winning a bunch of games. Bobby Bowden won too many games. They ain't gonna remember me for being top 10 ACC. You was top 10 ACC like 14, 15 years in a row. What's gonna set him apart? Not the national championship, even though he got 3 of them. It's being the best player in college football. And that guy we just saw run down the field had a big reason to do with it too, with freaking P-Dub. That's another list for another day. But yes, I mean, the accolades aside, BJ, that pro-style system that Florida State started running, that would be because of Chris Winkie. He was the reason why they kind of got away from the up-tempo, which we're going to tell you why, and kind of look at these guys on this list that he's throwing to. Come on, man. But yeah, Chris Winkie, I mean, 9,839 career, passing yards, 8th in ACC. You talk about the awards, but winning the Heisman, winning the Natty, I had a front row seat. Him and Snoop Menace, yeah, it got a little ugly. And all I can say is, man, congratulations, sir. He was number 5 on the top 10 all-time quarterbacks in the ACC.
Yeah, and certainly an interesting story. I was giving you a hard time, but as you said, went and played minor league baseball, out of high school, and was legitimately a decade older than just about everybody else when he settled in at FSU. So took a non-traditional path, of course, to Tallahassee, and you have all the jokes there, and that comes with it for sure. I mean, he dealt with it when he was there, right? Like, hey man, this guy's collecting Social Security and he's playing college football. But listen, he commanded the ebb and flow of the game. I mean, he was an absolute leader out there, and you think about that pocket presence where he would drop back. Now, no mobility, but if you give him a couple of seconds, he's going to find one of those playmakers downfield, and had a great touch on his deep passes. I mean, just an absolute zip on those deep passes. And the thing about Chris Winkie too, you talk about dealing with pressure. I mean, Ben, I believe that 99 team was the first team ever to be preseason number 1, stay number 1 the entire season, and be number 1 at the end by winning the national championship. And of course, Winkie outdueled Mike Vick in that famous 99 championship game, where that's one of the great championship games ever. But, had the Natty, had the Heisman. When you think about playing in 3 national championship games, or at least getting the team to 3 national championship games, in 98, he got hurt a couple of games before the national title and missed those final couple of games. In 99, took Florida State to a national title. And in 2000, took Florida State to the national title game. So you're talking about a guy who kind of maintained that dynasty legacy for FSU, and did so with a Heisman, did so with a Natty, did so with all the statistical production, leading the nation in passer rating, and did have that kind of unique story where he was the oldest guy to win the Heisman and do all this stuff, overcame, some tough injuries. That neck injury in 98 was a really tough injury that he overcame. But you mentioned Chris Winkie being a coach on the field, and he was when he played for the Noles, because look at what he's doing now. He's become one of the top coach now, but was a coach long ago, even when he was a player on the field for FSU. And he's absolutely one of the all-time greats, did it all. That brings us to number 4, Deshaun Watson. And you think about the Clemson dynasty, I mean, he is right there, a 2-time Heisman Trophy finalist. You're talking about a guy that did everything. I mean, 10,000 passing yards, almost 2,000 rushing yards, almost 120 career total touchdowns. And, the single season records, been all the numbers, all the production. Deshaun Watson was just so polished. I mean, Deshaun Watson was just so smooth. He made it look effortless. And to me, that's how I know you're an all-time great. When I watch you play, do you make the impossible look possible? Do you make the abnormal look normal? And that's what I saw with Deshaun Watson. I mean, you're watching it, you're going, he just threw that 60 yards in the air with just a flick of a wrist, or he just very calmly evaded evaded like a double linebacker blitz and just sidestepped them, and then kind of glided his way for 15 yards and, moved the chains. Just a guy that was smooth, didn't get rattled. You're talking about that pretty, I mean, we're seeing the highlight there, just that pretty flick of the wrist downfield. And again, moments, right? moments that define a career. National championship game, end of the game, everything's on the line. Deshaun Watson to Hunter Renfrow, ball game, give me the title. And I think that's what you think about with Deshaun Watson. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. And this guy won. This guy, again, affirmed, elevated Clemson to that national forefront where people, stop talking about Alabama. People stop talking about, some of these other programs, LSU. And now you're talking about Clemson and not Ohio State and not Notre Dame because of guys like Deshaun Watson. But, man, was awesome on those jump balls too. Those 50-50 balls would perfectly place them to those elite Clemson wide receivers. But a guy that was just a pure playmaker. I mean, made everything look natural and lighten people up. I mean, whether it was FSU, South Carolina, I mean, he was comfortable in every environment and could do it both ways. One of those dual threat guys that is kind of the modern player you want that can do anything you need a player to do on the field. But I just think about Watson to Renfrow and that championship moment, and Ben, the production speaks for itself.
When Charlie Whitehurst and Woody Dantzler or even Trevor Lawrence, it's Deshaun. If you wanted to play quarterback at Clemson, it's because you saw Deshaun Watson play. BJ, whoo, electrifying is what I think about when I think about Deshaun Watson. A guy that commanded the offense, dominated on the field, and once again, just like I said with Joe Hamilton, if you blink, it's a wrap. Because you mentioned almost 2,000 career rushing yards. Could have easily had 3 or 4 if he wanted to, but played within the confines of the offense. Didn't have, once again, I just said about Trevor Lawrence. If a Georgia quarterback, if a guy from Georgia goes to schools outside of Georgia to play quarterback, watch out. Watch out. I think a Gainesville, Georgia native. Here's the thing about Deshaun Watson that's not talked about a lot. His teammates loved him. I mean, most of the time, BJ, when you have that type of superstardom, you're going to have some level of animosity within the ranks of your team. Wasn't that? Went to back-to-back national championships, stared Nick Saban in the face and said, all right, you got me this year, but I'll see you next year, right? And to orchestrate that drive at the end of the game to get that big win, I think just shows the type of player he is and was. And Deshaun Watson, once again, did not win the Heisman, didn't have to. When you talk about Clemson became Clemson because of Deshaun. Now, it got elevated again when Trevor Lawrence got there, but Clemsoning, it eventually, it came all the way back to the forefront. And like I said, when I was watching a guy like Deshaun Watson play, he made you watch. It wasn't because he was in the ACC. It wasn't because he was at Clemson. It was because he was Deshaun Watson, who just happens to be at Clemson in the ACC. And like I said, BJ, it was one of those things where he didn't have the record that Trevor Lawrence had, but he didn't lose often. And if you beat Clemson when he was there, you had to have a dynamic team. You had to have an incredible defense because when you talk about RPOs, the run pass option, when you talk about being able to read defenses, when you talk about a guy that can utilize his legs, you talk about a guy that got the motion game and the pre-snap reads, he did it all. They let Deshaun Watson do it all. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to audible at the line when we was talking about a guy like Peyton Manning. But what Deshaun Watson did the best was he took games over. He said, all right, let's do it. Right? I know I got that 4 on my chest, but I know I got that Watson on my back. I'm gonna do whatever he got to do. And BJ, it's how he wanted that and not that he wanted. I mean, Hunter Renfrow. You talk about a guy that became a star with Deshaun in the slot, and only fitting that they got the game with a touchdown pass and throw to that guy. But yeah, Deshaun Watson to me is a guy that didn't have a lot of flaws in his game, and he made being a coach easy. He made being a teammate easy because he's gonna do what he has to do. Yes, I'm the face of the Clemson Tigers, but I'm gonna be just one of the guys. And when you got a guy that want to be just one of the guys, he just happened to be the guy. When you put the number 4 on, hey, Deshaun Watson, number 4 on the list, but could easily be higher. But which brings us to number 3. This next guy lost 1 game in college, won the Heisman, went undefeated. I call this dude about as good as you can play the position, Jameis Winston. Here's the thing about Jameis. When Jameis gets to Florida State, BJ, the hype was crazy because he's an Alabama kid, so people thought there's no way he's going to be able to leave the state comes to Florida State. Once again, just like a Deshaun Watson team, just like a Trevor Lawrence team, 2013 were loaded. They were loaded. He was the best player. And that's with all the players around him. What made Jameis Winston really, really great at football, nothing rattled him. Nothing. And it's how he played the position. He is not going to wow you with his legs. But when he needs to make a play with his legs, he will. The blitz, he's killing it. Trying to confuse him, he's going to make the right play with the football. When you talk about these big games, I mean, Florida State was a primetime game every Saturday, either during the day or at night. And I think Jameis Winston was the guy for that. What made Jameis Winston an even greater football player was the type of person he was. Didn't take life too seriously, didn't take himself too seriously, enjoyed college football for the time he was there. But when he was at Florida State, you're not beating him. I mean, interceptions was something that he had to deal with sometimes. But here's the thing. When you talk about that national championship throw to Kelvin Benjamin, for which we just seen, BJ, the whole world knew where that ball was going. The whole world knew, right? He still was able to get it into Kelvin Benjamin. And Kelvin Benjamin, when we get to talk about big time receivers, we'll see where he ranks. But what I appreciate the most about a guy like this, like Jameis Winston, was he to me, he's not the greatest Florida State quarterback ever, but he's one of them. And he carried on that tradition. I guarantee you when he walked through those doors, he was talking about the greats that came through there. But just like Chris Wiki, he said, how they going to remember me? It's not going to be because of a bunch of yards. It's not going to be because of a bunch of touchdowns. It's not even going to be because of a bunch of a moment. I want to be the best player in college football. Check. Heisman. I want to win the national championship. Check. Want to go undefeated. Check. ACC Player of the Year. Check. I don't want to lose that much. Lost one time. And when he lost, that was to the eventual national championship team, the Oregon Ducks, right? Who they went on to lose in the national championship. But isn't it crazy that Auburn is who they beat in the national championship, and Auburn's who beat the Oregon Ducks in the natty? But to me, when I think about a guy like Jameis Winston, that's football royalty. He's the guy that, say what you want about him, you couldn't beat him. Say what you want about how he played, it was effective. Say what you want about how he went about the game, teammates loved him. You know, he did some things that might have rubbed some people the wrong way, but he's young. We always talk about this. He's 19, 20 years old. He's in college. People going to make mistakes. But if you need to play, go give it up for the team. When you need to play, he's not going to pout. He's not going to complain. But on that field, man, that dude was a dog. And like I say, we had to deal with him for 2 years, didn't really have no success against him when he was there. Florida State was running college football, and they was running the state of Florida when Jameis Winston was there. What can I say about Jameis Winston other than congratulations, sir, on the career that he had? He is number 3 on this list. And like I said, that just lets you know the quality of players that's going to be number 2 and 1 when you got a guy that only lost one game, went undefeated, won the Heisman, was the number 1 overall pick, and was about as good as you could be at the quarterback position.
And I just think about stepping up in big-time moments, right? I mean, everybody remembers the national championship game. That was in the Rose Bowl, by the way, and that was a fantastic national title between Florida State and Auburn. Auburn takes the lead late, and you're looking around going, okay, here's Auburn with Nick Marshall and Trey Mason and Gus Malzahn, and they're going to steal this thing. And then Jameis finds a way to just so calm, unflappable, drive Florida State down the field, and now you have a defining situation. You're, near the goal line, game's on the line, couple of seconds left. What's going to happen? Just calm, smooth, drops back, finds Kelvin Benjamin, national title. That's it. Legacy, history. But it wasn't just that. I mean, think about that game early that season where they played at Clemson. Clemson was a top 5 team, right? A lot of people thought that was going to be a reality check for Florida State, that they were going to go in with this young quarterback and kind of run into Death Valley at night. Jameis drops 50 on Clemson. And at that point, everybody looked around and went, okay, this guy is serious, and had that great opener, that great start to the season, and then goes on to win the Heisman, win the Natty. But I remember him just heaving that ball downfield. I mean, Jameis is not going to nickel and dime you, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You see some offenses, some quarterbacks, they're going to drop back, throw a 7-yard out. They're going to drop back, throw a curl in the middle of the field. Jameis says, nope, I'm putting it 35 yards on a rope downfield. I'm throwing it 60 yards on a rope downfield. And to me, that's what I enjoyed about watching Jameis is he's the kind of quarterback you want to be when you're playing with your buddies and you're a kid. Man, no, I'm not going to throw you an out route over by the bush. Go deep. I want you to go deep. I'm going to sling that thing. And that's what Jameis did. You know, Jameis is a guy that he's going to have 475 yards passing at the end of the game. And I also think that record, you know, we talked about Trevor's record. What was it? 34-2. I mean, Jameis 27-1. And the game he lost was his last game. And that was that game with Marcus Mariota where, you know, Oregon was kind of unstoppable right then. Florida State had some turnovers and it got away from them. But back-to-back undefeated regular seasons. I mean, back-to-back undefeated regular seasons, one loss, and won the last BCS national title. Would have been fun to see him in the playoffs. But, you know, Jameis did it as a freshman. You know, we've seen a couple of guys on this list who were able to do it right away. Either as a true freshman, redshirt freshman. Jameis did all that as a redshirt freshman. But I think about that game at Clemson, one of the toughest places to play in the country. Then in the Rose Bowl, the entire world watching, game on the line, and you calmly go up and put it where only Benjamin can get it. And much like Deshaun had his Hunter Renfrow throw that kind of was the legacy, Jameis had that Kelvin Benjamin throw. That's the legacy. That's the national title. So, yeah, Jameis absolutely deserves to be right there in that conversation. And that brings us to number 2. And this is a guy that you and I think is just so underappreciated historically for what he did for college football. Also a fantastic basketball player and coach now at FSU after his career at FSU, played with the Knicks. And that's Charlie Ward, of course, one of the great athletes really in the history of sports, Charlie Ward. And he was the guy. And Ben, I always enjoy hearing you talk about this because of your obviously nuance and understanding about schemes. But he was a guy that changed the game. Okay. Yes, Charlie Ward won the Natty. Yes, Charlie Ward won the Heisman. Yes, Charlie Ward had that incredible profile where he did all that in football and then was a first-round pick of the New York Knicks and played like a decade or more, I think, for the Knicks in the NBA. I mean, just one of the all-time great athletes we've ever seen. But he was the guy that created that fast break, up-tempo, no-huddle offense. And you think about that now and you're like, oh, that's what everybody does in college football, right? That's kind of the status quo. It wasn't before Charlie Ward. And Charlie Ward came in and he literally changed the way the game was played. He changed the way the quarterback position was played. He changed the way offenses prepared and executed their game plans. And he really took college football by storm. I mean, defenses didn't know what to do. I mean, it was like he was playing on a different level athletically, intellectually. Charlie Ward was so smooth. I mean, you're talking about a guy that, yes, had the numbers, yes, could run it, throw it, but no mistakes. Charlie Ward's not going to throw picks. Charlie Ward's not going to fumble the ball. Charlie Ward's not going to make the wrong read. Charlie Ward was kind of the quintessential signal caller, right? When you think about who's that field general, who's that captain, who's that leader, who's that tone setter, it's Charlie Ward. And when you think about the Bobby Bowden FSU dynasty, right, kind of setting that program in motion, that what was it, like 14 years in the top 5 or something crazy? Charlie Ward's the godfather of that. I mean, Charlie Ward is who started that, and just a poise and a precision, Ben, that was incredible, almost unrealistic, right? I mean, you're watching him going, how? And had such a command of the field and of the game. And, you know, there are young kids now who maybe don't kind of fully understand the scope of Charlie Ward's career, what he meant to college football, what he meant to FSU, how he changed the game. And do yourself a favor and learn about this guy, right? Learn about his impact, learn about his legacy. It's a great guy. And, you know, we've enjoyed interviewing him, you know, over the years. But, wow, I mean, just a pure playmaker and an absolute leader for the Noles and one of the all-time greats in the history of college football and in the history of sports.
BJ, earlier I talked about how, you know, 3 of the 4 ACC quarterbacks that have ever won the Heisman came from Florida State. Well, he was the first ACC quarterback to win the Heisman, right? And we mentioned he's number 2. Yes, better career, better player than Jameis. Yes, better career, better player than Chris Winkie, but not so much being better than individually. It's what he meant to the game. When you are the first to innovate a offensive style, you got to have a quarterback that can do it. I don't care what type of receivers you got. I don't care what type of O-line you got. I don't care what type of tight ends or running backs you got. I got to have a quarterback that understands it, because if he can get with it, he'll get those other 10 guys. Charlie Ward was moving at a different speed. Charlie Ward was moving at a different level. And as you mentioned, BJ will go on to be a first-round pick in the NBA and to have an incredible career there. Charlie Ward doesn't get talked about enough of what he meant to college football, but what he meant to college athletics as a whole. This dude was doing things that you've never done. Yes, Deion Sanders also went, right, to Florida State. Yes, Chris Winkie was playing baseball before he got to Florida State. Deion Sanders, yes, he played two sports, when he got to the pros. He wasn't playing for Florida State basketball. Charlie Ward was a baller on the gridiron, right, and on the court. Charlie Ward said, look, I'm the best player in college football. I'm winning the national championship, and I'm out here going up against Duke and North Carolina and Virginia in the ACC. I am an impact player. I got Dickie V going, he's a diaper dandy, baby. I'm just saying, when you talk about what Charlie Ward meant to college athletics, we don't fully appreciate it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the head basketball coach at FAMU. So back in Tallahassee doing his thing. But BJ, the reason why I'm happy that Charlie Ward made this list, and number two, is we can never fully talk about how big of an impact player and person he was for two different sports for the same college. And Bobby Bowden, I mean, the head coach of Florida State basketball was like, I love Charlie Ward. This dude was doing things on the court. And that's the thing. Most of the time, when you are a dual sport athlete in college, you ain't as good in the second one. You just good enough to do it. But Charlie Ward, to me, is what Julius Peppers was in North Carolina. But now Julius Peppers went on to be, obviously a Hall of Fame defensive end, in the National Football League and being the second overall pick. But Charlie Ward said, hey, man, I'm playing basketball. Think about that. Most Heisman Trophy winners are in the draft. I am in the draft. What, the NBA draft? You think you're going to get drafted? Yeah. So the point guard that he was in football is what he got to translate over to basketball. But yeah, Charlie Ward, great athlete, great ambassador. I mean, a guy that came to Florida State with a plan. Because I guarantee you, BJ, when he's getting recruited by Coach Bobby Bowden, he's saying, look, Coach, I want to play football, but I got to play basketball too. He said, listen, as long as you don't get hurt. And the fast pace, I don't know what type of offensive scheme they ran in Florida State basketball, but I know the fast pace that they ran in football only helped him when he went out there in basketball. Yeah, Charlie Ward, an incredible football player, an incredible person, man. I mean, everybody out here talking about the man he was, the teammate he was, the person he was. So Charlie Ward, number two on our list, about as good as you can be, which leads us to number one. This guy, I would just say this. When I see this guy play football, I say to myself, is this even real? Like, how is he able to do this? The youngest Heisman Trophy winner of all time, a guy that just torched people, set records all over the field. The only reason you watched Louisville back then and you haven't watched them since, I am talking about the great Lamar Jackson. BJ, I am living in New Jersey. I remember this. I'm living in New Jersey at the time. And they got, Syracuse got this. I don't know if it was a Friday night game to start the season. I don't even know if it was on Saturday. And I keep seeing this dude. I'm like, who? I keep seeing this guy jumping over people. And I'm like, Lamar Jackson. Like, who's Lamar Jackson? And I'm like, Lamar Jackson with a touchdown. Lamar Jackson with a touchdown. And I'm like, is he going to stop scoring? And all of a sudden, after like 6 or 7 touchdowns, I'm like, who is this? And then, obviously, your Florida State Seminoles and what he did. But he did it to everybody. People want to talk about that Louisville versus Clemson game with him and Deshaun Watson out there putting up crazy numbers. Lamar Jackson is cheat code. Lamar Jackson is playing checkers he's playing he's playing whatever he want to play. Whatever Lamar want to. And BJ, listen to me. Just this dude, here it is. Nope. I mean, that is crazy. And I can only imagine being on that Louisville team, rooting for Louisville, watching this dude do this. And it's video game. It's cheat code. It's like, I mean, he ain't big enough to be on steroids. I'm pretty sure they probably tested him. He made college football took a step back and just watched this young man and just grace the field with his talent, with his gift. That young man is not talented. He's gifted. That's not talent. Everybody on that field got talent. That man is gifted. And he gave out presents every Saturday. You know, defenses, hey man, what kind of gift? I don't want no present. Well, you getting one. What you want the arm? What you want the legs? What you want the shakes? What you want the speed? What you want the agility? BJ, I don't know how fast Lamar Jackson is. That's how fast. I don't know. But you notice in these highlights, he ain't getting caught, right? He ain't getting caught. And to this day, I couldn't name one Louisville receiver, one Louisville running back, one Louisville fullback, one Louisville offensive lineman, one Louisville tight end. But somewhere they saying right now, you know I played with Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson is about as good as a football player you will ever see in football, ever. And it's embarrassing. It's disrespectful how good he is, how great he is. And when you meet him in person, you go, you Lamar Jackson? Mm-hmm. Yes. He about 100 and, I don't know, 80 pounds. They say he's 200 pounds. I mean, I don't know what a 200 is, but I will say this. We talk about all these greats with Chris Winkie, Charlie Ward, Jameis Winston, Phillip Rivers, you know, and the list goes, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Taj Boyd, Matty Ice. None of them can touch him. None of them can touch him. And this is how you know. If you go ask any one of them, you know how BJ in the South, when people, it's like this. When food is real good in the South, you eat it, you bite it, and you look at it. You go, like the food. When a player is real good and you mention their name, you know what people do? They do this. Lamar Jackson, they sit back in their seat. They go, oh, yeah. That man make you sit back in your seat and go, who is this? Lamar, hey, man, you were the easiest pick. There was no controversy for number one. It was 2 through 10. Anybody that got a list with the most electric and best quarterbacks all time in college football and Lamar Jackson ain't on it, throw the list in the trash, get some gasoline, light it on fire. Lamar Jackson, the best ACC quarterback, maybe the best ACC player I've ever seen with how he did it. And like I say, BJ, I know you're going to talk about that efficiency because people say as great as he was as a runner, he was even greater as a thrower.
It was like watching a video game, right? When you're watching a Louisville game with Lamar Jackson, you feel like you have a controller in your hands because you're like, I'm gonna press this button and juke this guy out. I'm gonna spin. I'm gonna throw this on a dime. I'm gonna score 9 touchdowns. You know, I played video games growing up, right? And you know, early on when you get the video game, you play on the lower level, and you know, you'd have like a game with 9 touchdowns. You'd have a game with 714 yards, and all your friends are going, "That's not realistic." Lamar made it realistic. Lamar Jackson made it realistic. And I'm like you. What got my attention was that Syracuse game where, you know, you're seeing the highlights and you're like, should I tune into this game? Louisville and Syracuse? And it's like whatever you're watching. And you turn to the game and they're like, yeah, Lamar Jackson, the freshman from Florida, has, you know, 397 yards with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. And you're like, wait a second. Is this real? And then you're watching and you're like, he's moving at a different speed than everybody else. I mean, he's seeing the field like he's a computer, right? It's like, how are these guys getting open? How are these passes getting in there? Oh, he just spun away from a dude. He just jumped over a dude. I mean, he literally jumped over a grown 21-year-old man, college football player, and now he's running away from a DB like the DB is an offensive guard. And you're watching it going, what is the ceiling here? Like, what is going to happen? And what happened is, we saw one of the greatest players to have ever played football ever literally put on a show for his entire career at Louisville. And I do think it's important to note, of course, when you watch Lamar Jackson, there's the speed, there's the shakes, like you said, there's the juke. But this guy was passing the efficiency at a historic level, was putting downfield throws on a dime. I'm talking about sideline throws on the money. And when you've had great players, you're talking about a big-time program in the ACC, but maybe not the supporting cast of an Alabama or a Clemson or an Ohio State or an LSU. What Lamar Jackson did was beyond compare. What Lamar Jackson did was beyond belief. I mean, you're watching this going, this does not feel real. My frame of reference cannot process this as it is. I'm watching this and something in my brain is saying, this is unrealistic. And as you watch it, as you learn more about him, the player, I think he made these unrealistic stats seem normal, right? If you watch a game this fall and a quarterback has 304 yards passing and 107 yards rushing, why that doesn't feel crazy is because of Lamar Jackson, right? Before Lamar Jackson, you would hear that and go, no, that's stupid. That's not even possible. Now, after Lamar Jackson, you hear that and you go, yeah, that's pretty good. But Lamar had that game where he had like 614 yards in the first half against Syracuse, or he had that game where they scored 49 against Florida State in the first half, or he had that game where he had, 5 touchdown passes, 3 touchdown rushes, and they took him out for the fourth quarter. I mean, what he did was play video games. How? I don't know. I mean, how did he do that? I have no idea. I mean, how did he make things we had never seen before in the history of college football seem normal? I don't know. And I'm with you. Look, most of these lists, it is brutally hard. I mean, you feel terrible about it. I don't know who's number one. I don't know. And you try. Here, there's no argument. And look, nope. Charlie Ward might be one of the 5 best quarterbacks to have ever played college football. And if there is a guy on this list, I mean, he's the closest. But Lamar was such a standalone, isolated talent that there's really not a player you can compare him to. And, you talk about, we talked about some of the kind of the innovators on this list, right? Like Joe Ham. Joe Ham was a guy that was really undersized. Lamar Jackson, I mean, diminutive in terms of stature. I mean, you're not talking about a guy that's 230, right? And, everybody wants the quarterback that's 225. Lamar Jackson said, hey, man, maybe I'm –
Look at the high school. Look at it. He's going to stop. He's going to go –
I mean, Ben,
that's ridiculous.
Maybe I'm 185. Maybe I'm 195. Maybe I'm 175. Nobody's going to stop me. Nobody's going to stop me. And I think now when you see quarterbacks that are, I don't know, less than 200 pounds, instead of immediately going, oh, no, he's got to play receiver. He's got to play slot corner. Maybe he can be a gadget player. Now you go, Lamar Jackson did it. Lamar Jackson did it at a level we've never seen before. And I just think he's a guy that stands alone in history when you think about his production, when you think about his proficiency, when you think about his dual threat ability, when you think about his big play ability, when you think about his demeanor. Lamar Jackson, the world's watching him. Everybody in the stadium is there to see him. Calming presence. I'm calm in chaos. Stadiums are going crazy. I'm calm. 3rd and 14. I'm calm. Down 4 in the fourth quarter. I'm calm. Playing a top 5 team, I'm calm. And I think that's part of what makes him so great is just that natural easygoing ability. He's out there doing the ridiculous. And to me, I just think video game. When I think about Lamar Jackson, I think video game because it felt like I was playing a video game on an easy level. And I'm not sure any other player in history has ever made me feel that way.
When I think about Lamar Jackson, I mean, PR. Something I told you, BJ, both perception and reality. You cannot make up stuff about Lamar that he hasn't done. People say, okay, so what if he had, 300 and 400 yards passing, 170 yards rushing, and 6 touchdowns. He did that last night. What? He just did that. And here's the thing about Lamar. He isn't a class all by himself, BJ, because that's how he plays. He has the speed of Michael Vick, right? He got a big arm, right? He got a big live arm like a Phillip Rivers. He's a guy that can take over a game like Joe Hamilton, right? He has that superstar ability like a Deshaun Watson, and he's not the biggest dude. Lamar Jackson has become the new barometer when somebody's trying to get recruiting. Say, man, I got this kid, man. What you like about him? He kind of remind me of Lamar Jackson. What did you just say? Who?
Yeah,
let me see. Let me see this kid. I really enjoy putting together lists like this, BJ, because it's supposed to be hard, right? Because we think we got the 10 lists, and then we start saying, dang, I forgot about that dude. Like, somebody this Russell Wilson, really, really good. When he was in college, you're going to have a lot of guys that was really, really good. But to make the top 10, which means you have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Special. You have to be rare. You have to be an innovator or a bricklayer or the first of your kind or the only one of your kind or we talking about elevating status quo. I mean, three of the four Heisman Trophy winners on this list all went to Florida State, which means if there is no Lamar Jackson, the only Heisman Trophy representation at quarterback in the ACC is coming from Florida State. You talk about Ricky, you talk about Charlie Ward, you talk about Winston, but Lamar Jackson to me is a culmination of all these guys. That's what makes him number one. You can see a little bit of all these guys. Not the biggest guy like Joe. The reason why you watching you talk about a guy like Matty Ice in Boston College or superstar like Trevor Lawrence, like Deshaun Watson. When you talk about a guy that's an innovator like a Jameis Winston. So yeah, top 10 list. So they all ACC quarterbacks. BJ, it's always fun doing the show with you because here's the thing. Listen, make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe, make sure you guys keep listening. And look, please leave a comment. Tell us what top 10 list you want to see. Tell us what top 10 list you want us to go over. Tell us, different scenarios or different things you guys want to give us a chance to go out there. And if it has to do with college football, and we're not talking about 2026, we talking about, we ain't talking about 1926 either. Let's get that straight. We talking about, we want to be honest, when there was color in the TV, when TV didn't go off, when you had different shades of people playing against each other. We talked about that. And to those people out there who got these Letterman jackets, I don't know where you get them from. And they got things like 42 on it and 56 on it. No, I'm sorry. We won back in 56.
You're saying you don't like when the fan bases go, we won the national title in 1938.
And here's the thing too, right? And I go, okay, and when were you born? Well, I was born in 64, but sir, please be quiet. And look, we're not taking away national championships. We're not saying that. We're just saying if, some colleges weren't even invented when y'all was winning national championships, and people saying stuff like, we didn't even have a television. If you won and you could only hear the game on the radio, no, I'm sorry. We gotta move the past. But BJ, what I love the most about the backstory is it is about the history of college football. I'm gonna keep saying this. Every current student athlete that walks into a school, especially football players, the first thing you should do is go to your position group. They turn on the history tape. Let me show you your position. Let me show you what your position has done. Then let me show you what this team has done. Because everybody, if you go to Florida State, and soon they say, man, he reminds me of Jameis Winston. No, he don't. He reminds me of Charlie Ward. No, he don't. He reminds me of Deshaun Watson. No, he don't. Some kid went to Louisville. They said, man, he reminds me of Lamar Jackson. Listen, if you was Lamar Jackson Jr., you ain't Lamar. Let's not give the kids a chance to go out there and build their own legacies. But look, just because you didn't make this list doesn't mean you won one of the best. But let me tell you about our list. Y'all might think our list is wrong, but that don't make it wrong. Because people are going to say, well, Ben, we thought it was this. If you don't like our list, here's the thought. Either make your own. Make your own list. This is our list. This is what we're going to keep doing. Because he is BJ Bennett. I am Ben Troupe. To every story, there's the backstory. And we out.
Barbary doing the dark. Whisper cutting through the spark. Something ball stands been low. For underneath the public show. Static cracking through the night. Truth distorted out of sight. Someone trying to break the code before the